everybody.
Hello.
It's
Me.
Mr.
S.
and
Him.
Mr.
A.
on
Learning.
lockdown
Coming.
from
Liverpool
College. It's time for maths, and today, this week, in fact, we're going to change it up a little bit and do some baking.
Baking in maths?
Baking in maths.
How do you use maths in baking?
Well, how do you not is going to be the question that we'll be asking by the end of the week.
Thanks very much, now I get it.
Last week, you were using a lot of these. These are rulers, and it's upside down. These are rulers. And this one is, can anyone remember? This is a metre-long ruler, so it's made up... Stop that. So it's made up of 100 centimetres. And we can call this a scale, if you want. Because this scale helps us measure in centimetres. In fact, the big sections on this ruler in the different colours help us measure in 10 centimetres if you ever want to measure like that. But this is what we call a straight scale. Now, this week, you're going to need to learn to read circular scales. And you might say, Mr. A, I've never read a circular scale in my life. I'm not
They
even sure what
might say, I can't read any scales, I don't have any fish.
No, you won't. But...
Oh,
what is this?
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yay!
Yeah.
Bad throw. This is a clock. And actually, going around the outside, we do have a scale. We've got these big numbers that go all the way around to 12. But the big numbers, they help us read the hours. And then in between the big numbers, you can see we've got some tiny little dots. That's another scale. It's kind of like an overlap of two scales on a clock. And that scale helps us read in minutes. And we use the hands, where the hands are pointing, a bit like an arrow on a ruler, to tell us which hour we're pointing to or which minute we're pointing to. So that is a circular scale. But you might use that in baking, but that's not what we're going to look at today, but it's just to reassure you that you have seen circular scales before.
We done with that?
Yeah, all good.
You know what to do.
So, what scale is still circular but could help you with baking?
Oh, go on then. Ow! What are you doing?
I'm trying to find it.
You nearly done, Mr. A? Whoa! You again?
Hey! They finally got out of there, you little very scurry dogs.
Well, do you know anything about this lesson we're doing on scales?
I once kissed a mermaid and she was covered in scales on her legs.
Oh, her legs were scales?
Yes.
Well, do you know, we're talking about like with maths, so if you don't
Maths?
know... Yeah?
I'm gonna go.
Oh yeah, thank you. No use to me, is he, if you can't do that? You know, it's fair enough that the Dr. Wittenberg turns up, he can actually help. That pirate's no good to it.
Got it!
Right? Did you see that pirate while you were down there?
What?
There's a pirate, the angry pirate, so he was quite calm today.
No.
Well, never mind.
Here we've got some weighing scales and some slightly broken ones. Now, weighing scales are very simple. What they help us do is they help us measure the weight, not the length or the time, but the weight or the mass of an object. There's a bit of a scientific term for you. Now, if I had, let's say, this object and I placed it on the scales, you can see my needle rotates.
I was just yawning.
Oh. You can see my needle rotates around the scale and points to a number. Now, these scales are a bit broke, so we're going to go to imaginary scales on the board. So, just like on a clock, we've got a circular scale and a hand, and the hand points to the numbers that we need to read. So let's have our scale and let's put an imaginary item on top of it. Wow, look at that.
And you can see that the needle has gone round, and it is now pointing at...
So here you can see that's how it works. Now, we're talking about grams and kilograms today, and a gram is a very small, very light unit of weight or mass. And a kilogram is 1,000 grams, a bit like a kilometre is 1,000 metres. Now, today what we want you to do is go and find an object around your house that is roughly a kilogram. Now, you might not have scales at home, and we understand that, but you might have digital ones as well, or maybe bathroom scales. Now, can you find an object that is a kilogram and do some comparisons with it? Find things that are lighter and things that are heavier. Could you tell if they're heavier or lighter even without using scales? Now, if you don't have scales, things at home that could be a kilogram are a full bag of small sugar. They tend to have the weight on them. Or if you have a really light plastic bottle and you filled it with a litre of water, then that would also be a kilogram. So maybe you can go and find those if you don't have a set of scales. So you're going to mess around with a kilogram today and just get used to objects that are lighter and objects that are heavier than them. And if you have some scales at home, have a practice reading them.
Bye.